Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mamobat. Today, I will be discussing the competency 2, which is recalling and understanding prose and dramatic prose. Let us first define what is prose. Prose is derived from the Latin expression prosa oratio, meaning literally straightforward or direct speech. The best way to define prose is it can be a style of writing or speaking done in a straightforward, conversational manner rather than poetic. As a piece of writing, it is a continuous piece which uses sentences and paragraphs that sound similar to ordinary and natural flow of speech, which may or may not be creative. It can be any language that follows regular grammatical conventions without metrical structures. So, meaning to say, prose, literally, it doesn't use fancy or complicated language. You are just using words and sentences that are easy to understand and follow or sound like natural without any special rhyme or rhythm. Also, prose can be creative or not, so it depends on the author's intention. It can be written in any language that follows normal grammar rules without needing to have specific patterns like poetry does. In simplest terms, prose is just a regular writing that sounds like how people talk every day. So common examples of prose are essays, articles, and even emails. So, if someone tells you to write something in prose, just remember that they want you to keep it simple and clear. Another example that we have here is this one. I will not be doing weather because you have the best weatherman in the Philippines. So, said by Kim Atienza. So, this one is an example of a prose because Kim Atienza is saying that they will not be reporting on the weather because there is already someone else who does it well in the Philippines. So this example shows us how prose can be used to convey information in a straightforward and simple way. And another example is the conversation. So next is what are the types and varieties of prose? So the first one we have there are three. We have descriptive prose, narrative prose, and expository prose. So but let's define them one by one. So first is the descriptive prose. So a descriptive prose is a piece of writing which is used to describe things as they are. It can be a description of specific scenes, settings, or people within a prose writing. So it is giving details or something that describes. The purpose of descriptive prose is to provide details about something so that the reader can have a clear understanding and picture in their mind. So, for example, if you were reading a book and the author described the sunset with words like, the sky was ablaze with oranges and pinks. So, this is an example of a descriptive prose because it gives us specific details about what the sunset looked like. So, in simple words, descriptive prose helps us create vivid images in our minds by providing detailed descriptions of people, places, or things. So, just like the example given in the slide. So, I was looking up when the first clear thunderbolt struck. It blazed against the sky and sea. I could see its shape in perfect reverse colors when I blinked. More followed. The thunder rumbled and stuttered as if it could hardly keep up. There were openings in the cloud now as if the sky were torn, and spots of brilliant blue shone above the shadowed sea. The next one is the narrative prose. Narrative prose refers to a piece of writing focused on describing events, external or internal, could be describing feelings and emotions. So these events must be factual and photographic in presentation. So narrative Prose is a type of writing that tells a story about something that happened. It can be about things that happened in the outside world, like an exciting adventure, or it can be about someone's thoughts and feelings on the inside. So, the most important thing is that everything described in narrative prose must be true and accurate, just like looking at a photograph of what actually happened. So, if you read something written in narrative prose, you can trust that it really did happen. So we have an example here, an excerpt from To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So Maycomb was an old town, but it was a tired old town when I first knew it. In rainy weather, the streets turned to red slop, grass grew on the sidewalks, the courthouse sagged in the square. So the passage of this example exhibits narrative prose by presenting descriptive account of the town Maycomb. So it employs a narrative style, offering a vivid depiction of the town's age, the wariness, and the visual details of the streets, the sidewalks, and the courthouse. Remember that this type of writing focused on storytelling and conveying a sequence of events or experiences. Now we have the last one, the expository prose, which deals with explanations or definitions. It aims to explain and clarify. So, in other words, expository prose is a type of writing that focuses on providing explanations or definitions. So, this goal of expository prose is to help readers understand complex ideas by breaking them down into simpler terms. So it aims to clarify any confusion and make things easier to comprehend. So, for example, if you were reading an article about how the human brain works, so expository prose would break down each component and explain its function in detail so that even someone with no prior knowledge could understand it. Similarly, if you were trying to learn a new word, expository prose would provide a clear definition and give examples of how it can be used in different contexts. So, expository prose serves as a tool for making complex information more accessible to everyone by providing clear explanations and definitions. So, for examples, The Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. The agricultural revolution was history's biggest fraud. Who was responsible? Neither kings, nor priests, nor merchants. The culprits were a handful of plant species, including wheat, rice, and potatoes. So, in this given example from Sapiens, the passage is expository because it provides information about the agricultural revolution. So it presents a clear statement that the agricultural revolution was history's biggest fraud. So and goes on to explain the responsible factors, namely certain plant species like wheat, rice, and potatoes. So the primary purpose of expository prose is to convey factual information and elucidate the reader on the author's perspective regarding the topic. Now let's move on to the forms of literary prose. I know we're all familiar with this, so we have fiction, non-fiction, novels, novelette, short stories, and drama. So let us talk about fiction first. So fiction is a product of the imagination of man finding its shape in people's stories or events. So it can be an allegory, romance, and or satire. So fiction, these are stories which came from the creative minds of people. So it can be based on real events or completely made up. So there are different types of fictions stories such as allegories, romances, and satires, and many more. So, we will also be discussing those things. So, basically, fiction is just another way for us to tell stories and express our imagination. So, here are the different types of fiction. Let's first talk about the prose allegory. So, prose allegory is a prose fiction wherein characters, ideas, and actions implied and represent something else. So, personification of characters is concretely observed. So, prose allegory, it is a prose fiction wherein characters and ideas and actions implied represent something else. So, in this kind of story, the characters, ideas, and actions represent something else. So, this means that they are not just what they seem on the surface, they have a deeper meaning or message behind them. So, for example, if there was a character in an allegory who always wore uh, blue clothes and talked about how much they love the ocean, so this could representing someone who feels calm and peaceful when surrounded by nature. So the color blue might symbolize tranquility or serenity. Another important aspect of prose allegory is personification. This means giving human qualities to non human things like animals or objects. So, in an allegorical story, you might see animals acting like people. For instance, a wise old owl who gives advice to other characters. So, prose allegory is a way of telling stories that goes beyond just describing what happens on the surface levels. It uses symbolism and metaphor to convey deeper meanings and messages about life or society. The second one is parable. The parable is a story which illustrates one or more instructive lessons. So, parable is a type of story that is meant to teach us something important. So it's like when you read a book or watch a movie and there's a moral at the end. That's what a parable is all about. So the story might have characters, settings, and events just like any other story, but it has an extra purpose to help us learn something new or understand idea better. So for example, you might hear a parable about two farmers who plant different types of crops and how their choices affect their harvest. So from this story, we can learn about the importance of making good decisions and planning ahead for success in our own lives. So parables are often used in religious teachings as well as everyday life to help people understand complex ideas in simple ways. The third one is the fable. It is a story which uses animals as characters to tell a moral lesson. So, a fable is another type of story that uses animals as characters to teach a moral lesson. So, these stories are often short and easy to read, but they can have a deep meaning. So, for example, one famous fable is the tortoise and the hare. So in this story, the hare is the very fast but also very arrogant. The tortoise challenges him to a race, and even though he moves slowly, he wins because he never gives up. So the moral of the story is that slow and steady wins the race. Another popular fable is The Ant and the Grasshopper. So this story features an ant who works hard all summer storing food for winter, while a grasshopper spends his time playing music instead of preparing for the future. So when winter comes, the ant has plenty of food while the grasshopper goes hungry. So the moral here is that it's important to work hard and plan ahead. So fables are still used today in books and movies to teach lessons about life or society in general. So they're usually aimed at children but can be enjoyed by people of all ages. The fourth one is legend, are stories of creation and origins, whether about an object, a place, or an event. So the word legend refers to stories that explain the creation or origins of something, such as an object, place, or event. So these stories are often passed down through generations and may have some basis in truth, but also involve elements of mythology or folklore. So, for example, a legend might tell the story of how a particular mountain was formed or why a certain animal has certain characteristics. So, legends can be found in many cultures around the world and serve as a way to connect people to their history and traditions. The fifth one is myth, a traditional story written anonymously which explains briefly a custom or a mysterious natural phenomenon. So, it is a type of traditional story that has been passed down through generations, usually anonymously. So these stories are used to explain customs or natural phenomena that may seem mysterious or unexplainable. So, for example, many cultures have myths about the creation of the world or the origins of certain traditions. Myths often involve supernatural beings and events, and they can be used to teach moral lessons or convey important cultural values. So, in other words, myths are an important part of human storytelling and help us make sense of our world in meaningful ways. The sixth one is the prose romance. Stories of supernatural or magical events, fantastic and unrealistic. So it is a type of story that includes supernatural or magical events. So these stories are often fantastic and unrealistic, meaning they include things that wouldn't be possible in real life. So for example, a prose romance might feature characters with special powers like flying or the ability to talk to animals. So the events in these stories are often very dramatic and exciting, making them popular among readers who enjoy fantasy and adventure. So, if you're looking for a story full of magic and wonder, then a prose romance might just be the perfect choice for you. The seventh one is the fairy tales. It is a folkloric stories whose motifs are about commonplace expressions and themes that are typical, such as supernatural challenges and restoration, with characters such as cruel king and wicked stepmothers, and which mostly have happy endings. So, fairy tales are stories that have been passed down through generations again and often involve supernatural challenges and happy endings. So, these stories usually features characters such as cruel kings or wicked stepmothers, but they also include common themes like restorations and overcoming obstacles. So, fairy tales often teach moral lessons about the importance of perseverance, kindness, and bravery in the face of adversity. While these stories may seem fantastical, they can still provide valuable insights into human nature and the struggles we all face in life. The eighth one is the folk tales. Folk tales are stories which consist of one or a combination of many folklore themes or motifs passed on from language to language and country to country. So they are also migratory tales. Folk tales are stories that have been passed down from generation to generation, so often through different languages and across various countries. So these stories usually include common themes or motifs that can be found in other folklore as well. So folk tales are sometimes called migratory tales because um, they travel and change over time as they are retold by different people in different places. So examples of folk tales include Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and the Three Little Pigs. The last one is the satire, are humorous stories used to ridicule human vices and follies evident in its plot. So, Satire is another type of writing that uses humor to make fun of human weaknesses and foolishness. So, this kind of story often has a plot that highlights these flaws in people's behavior or actions. So, satires can be found in books, movies, TV shows, or even on social media. So, the goal of satire is not only to entertain but also to point out the problems in society and make people aware of them. So, for example, a satirical story might poke fun at politicians who lie or cheat their way into power, or it might highlight how people are obsessed with material possessions instead of focusing on more important things like relationships and personal growth. So, in summary, satire is an entertaining way to criticize human flaws and bring attention to important issues in our world today. So, that's all for my report. Thank you so much for listening.